Brutality of That War. I mean, it was insane.
At the turn of the 20th century, when those lights went on in places, it was an extraordinary thing.
You're being very hostile today.
You're working right on the gray area here.
You fancy LA guys change the rules around whenever you want.
I'm a little slower than the rest of the group. I'm sorry.
But by the way, if you're shot in a war, we're leaving you.
We're talking non-presidents. Who win the next Nobel Peace Prize? Actually, this isn't even non-presidents, just in general. Who's going to win the next Nobel Peace Prize?
What are the lists? I don't even know who's
I'm going to tell you right now.
For 26?
For
Is there a market for that?
Is it an annual thing?
Yeah.
It happens annually.
Yeah.
There's one Nobel winner annually.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what Polymarket is predicting. Zelensky's got a 12% chance. Donald Trump has a 12% chance.
Wow.
The International Court of Justice has a 10% chance.
Wow.
That's a thing?
You can do the whole court?
I guess.
Wow.
Pope Leo has a 7% chance. What are we thinking?
Well, as you know, I'm a big Chicago fan, and Pope Leo is from Chicago.
Okay, you're thinking Pope.
I'm thinking Pope.
I'm thinking the International Court of Justice.
You don't even know who's on the International Court of Justice.
I don't even know what that is, really.
We're gonna have to look that up.
Is that like
we're gonna have to look that up using Grok?
Is the International Court of Justice in The Hague? Is that what that is?
I believe so. Now, after this, once my brothers see that I said that I believe so, my two brothers are going to give me such crap. Get destroyed.
Okay, so this is the Rushmore of greatest Americans from 1776 to 900.
Non-presidents.
Excluding presidents.
Okay, between you and your son, who do you want to go, Doris?
Doris should go first.
Doris should go first. Hit it,
Mom,
Doris.
after you.
Okay, I'm going to start with Ben Franklin. I mean, partly because he would be so much fun if I had to focus on him. I mean, amazing. I'd like to live with him, think about him in the morning, think about him when I go to bed at night. Just imagine.
Did he have any flaws?
Well, not to me, now that I've fallen in love with him. I suspect if I knew him much longer, I might find some.
I wouldn't have wanted to be married to him.
Oh, I don't know.
Why? When he lived in France, you wouldn't want to have been married to him or Europe?
No, he's just so interesting. I mean, just think about it. When he's only in his 20s, he's already a printer, and he publishes Poor Richard's Almanac, and it's a huge bestseller even then. What it really does is to set up the civic values that would be in a merit-based society that eventually become a republic. I mean, he talks about humility. He talks about diligence is the mother of good luck. And he talks about, it's good to love your neighbor, but make sure you have hedges between your places. It's funny, but it's really important because it says that he wants character to be more important than pedigree. So he's setting the rule later, I think, for what will become a republic. And then in his 30s, he talks about the civic institutions that are necessary for a new kind of republic eventually. And that's libraries that he founds, and he founds fire stations and colleges, and he wants education for people. So he's right there as a foundation. And then you get him in his 40s and his 50s, and he's got lightning and experiments and electricity. And then in his 60s and 70s, he's there at the Declaration, writing part of it. He secures France's support for the revolution, and he makes America known all around the world. Then you get him in his 80s, and I love him, of course, in his 80s because he's about.
Well, he creates bifocals.
What?
He created the bifocal.
I know, incredible.
Incredible.
I mean, he's creative, and he also then in his 80s, he's actually the oldest guy at the Constitutional Convention. He's arguing for compromise, and then in his final years, he becomes an abolitionist, and he's arguing that Congress has the power to do something to end the slave trade. And the last thing he writes is something about that. So I think what a life he lived, what a full, meaningful life. I go
Constantly curious.
That's probably the quality that's the most important. It's what a little boy has. I mean, he still has that. That's why I think I'd like to be married with him, because I think he has a little boy.
You wouldn't have had John if you were married to him.
Who knows? I mean, it would have been a different kind of John.
And I also want to say, we're sort of dumping poor Fred Rogers on the side of the road here.
Okay, that's your first.
That's my first. So now should John go with
his
first?
No. You do all four.
4 in a row.
I do all 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my second is old Tom Paine. I mean, though he never led an army and he never had a high position, what he did was to provide the words that I think, as people have said, it transformed the fight for independence from some sort of elite theory into a mass understanding. And again, what he was able to do, you just think about those words and what they meant. I mean, in the January of 1776, when Common Sense is published, it's a huge, huge bestseller too. I mean, probably it would mean millions today, hundreds of thousands then. Can you imagine hundreds of thousands then? And it became a common conversation. And what he's arguing is that the fight is not just against the laws that the king has proposed, these laws we don't like, these unpopular, it's against monarchy itself. It's monarchy that's wrong. And that's a deeper understanding of what the whole...
What's the name? I have not read that
Common
book.
Sense.
Common Sense. I have to read that now.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it was in language that people, it was like a citizen writing to another citizen. It wasn't scholarly. It wasn't lawyerly. It was just public, like the way FDR spoke to the country. I think it's the same way. And then you get him in December of 1776 when Washington's in trouble and the army is collapsing. And then suddenly comes out his American Crisis. And it's that great thing where he talks about the summer soldier and the, do you remember, John, exactly the summer soldier and the...
There's no time for a summer soldier.
Summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will not give their service to the country. But those who stand with us today, they will be remembered and loved by every man and every woman. And Washington had those words read to his troops. So I think in many ways, right before battles, in many ways, just like Churchill, they say, well, the soldiers went to war armed by his words. I think people went to war at that time armed by the words of Tom Paine.
You know, I saw the Ken Burns doc on the Revolution.
And it starts with that, right?
It starts with that. And the brutality of that war, that inspired these people to stay with that war as long as they stayed with that war, not having shoes
or money
or food. I mean, it was insane, that war. How brutal it was.
So you need something to keep you going. You need to feel you're part of something larger than yourselves. And that's what he was able to make people do. The power of words. In fact, both people, the power of words are important that I've said. Okay. Now my third person is Frederick Douglass. I mean, when Lincoln was called a liberator after the Emancipation Proclamation, he said, "Don't call me that. It was the anti-slavery movement. It's the abolitionists. It was the Union soldiers. They did it all." And no one was probably more important to be at the heart of that abolitionist movement than Frederick Douglass. He really provided in many ways the moral conscience of the country. I mean, when you think about when he's in his 20s, he's escaped from slavery. And he becomes the most powerful speaker in the North. He becomes he starts the North Star, one of the most influential abolitionist papers. And he too writes his biography, and it becomes a huge seller. The narrative, people understood what the impact
was. That like the first Black person that wrote a book that became a bestseller? Probably that became a bestseller, right, John?
I think the first published Black author was a poet during the American Revolution named Phyllis Wheatley.
Oh yeah!
Wow,
good for you.
It was a poet.
A poet. She was sold into enslavement
in the South or in the North.
In the North.
Right.
And she corresponded with Washington.
Wow.
And Benjamin Rush was an advocate for her.
Was she still a slave when she wrote?
No, she was not. But it's the title was one of those wonderful 18th century titles, on various subjects, poetic and religious, something like that. It was no Team of Rivals brand.
But
she was a bestseller.
I think you're right that this is the first time that it becomes a huge seller that people are talking about. And what he really did was to argue that, unlike other abolitionists who thought the Constitution had to be undone, he said, no, the Constitution has within it the power. We just have the contradiction of slavery, and we have to get through that. And slavery. And that's a different way of thinking about it. And then what happens is once the war starts, he's arguing vociferously for making the war about emancipation, not just Union, even before Lincoln is. And then when finally emancipation happens and the Black troops are going to be mobilized, he's out there recruiting the Black troops. Yeah. And he does it in a great, put an eagle on your button and put a musket on your shoulder, and no one will be able to deny you citizenship. But then he gets furious at the idea that the Blacks are not getting the same money as the whites are. And then he decides, I can't put my heart in this anymore. But instead of just stopping, he goes to see Lincoln. And then that relationship is remarkable. Those two men met for 3 times. There was a real partnership that formed between them, probably nowhere better illustrated than at the second inaugural. He's invited Douglas, Lincoln has, to the inaugural, and he comes to these reception afterwards, and they don't let him in at first. Lincoln has to send somebody out to bring him in. Then he walks across the room very loudly saying, "Oh, Douglas, my good friend, come over here." And they said, "I want to know what you thought of my speech." And then Douglas, at first, everybody else is around him, and he kind of doesn't say anything. Then he says, "No, your opinion matters more than anyone's." And then finally Douglas says, "Mr. Lincoln, it was a sacred effort." And Lincoln smiles and his face is lit up. So there's an amazing sense that these two men came together. And the great thing about Douglas is that he also was practical besides being the moral conscience of the country. He later said about Lincoln that if Lincoln were judged by abolitionist standards, he would seem tardy and cold and indifferent. But if you judged him by the standards of a person who had to deal with the sentiment of the country, as a president had to do, then he was radical and determined and zealous. And I just thought that was great. He understood
his use of words were incredible.
Agitator and Lincoln is the politician.
Yeah.
So he's my next guy.
But the funny thing is, the Revolutionary War was two revolutions. It was the revolution against the British, but it also, because of Frederick Douglass, I think the revolution inside for slavery, which then caused,
I think that's right. So he's my third person that I would have up there.
Okay.
And then the last, thank God, is a woman, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And I think what's so especially important about her is that she is the person who helps to organize that first conference in Seneca Falls in 1852. She's the one who writes the Declaration of Sentiments, which is based on the Declaration of Independence. She provides throughout her life, really, the philosophy and the words. Again, it comes down to words, the words that really underscore the women's suffrage movement. And then when the suffrage movement splits between those who think it should just be suffrage, narrow focus, and the others like Cady Stanton, who say, no, it's a much larger movement. It's got to do with women's property rights and the chance to keep custody of their kids if they get divorced and equal educational rights. And then eventually she's also able to bring those two movements together and unify them and become the president. So for years she provided, and also much more importantly, that she's able to do all this. And she has 7 children and married to an abolitionist. So that's what's extraordinary.
Wow.
And though she never lived to see
Is there a biography on hers that one can read?
There are biographies on her, but I think she should be even better known. If I were not my age, I think she'd be somebody. When I was thinking about doing this, guys, with you, I got so interested in her, and she didn't live to see the...
I am an agent. I will take 10% for that right now. I'm just letting you know.
Okay, gotcha.
This is the dorkiest way to get business.
Exactly. But I'm working here.
Okay, Jon, your turn.
That's a great answer.
She'd be my fourth because really in so many ways during that long struggle for getting suffrage, which took so many decades, she provided, again, once the moral and the language that I think kept people going. So there they go. They'd be 4 characters together. They all had the power of words. They all had a moral conscience. I like them all. I think they'll belong together.
Okay, Jon.
So there's been no coordination, I promise, because Doris likes to prepare, as you can see, and makes very precise notes. I am more of a jazz musician, as my mother will tell you. So we have 3 out of 4.
No kidding.
3 out of 4.
Wow.
Franklin, Douglas, Stanton.
Wow.
Are all 3. I have slightly different reasons, particularly for maybe a little bit for Douglas, and then the 4th one will be fun. I agree with everything Doris has said. The thing about Douglas that I think one of my causes is to try to get a Douglas Memorial in Washington. I think he's arguably the most important American of the 19th century who wasn't president, and which is a
huge thing to say. Yeah, that's great.
Those are big words.
Because imagine what it took. He's born into enslavement. He escapes. He gets uncomfortable whenever he gets any farther south than Philadelphia, because he was born in Maryland when it was a slave state, and it scared him. Doris mentioned the contradictions of the American experience are on such vivid display. On March 4th, 1865, Lincoln addresses what may be the largest integrated crowd in American history to that point. He goes to the White House. The security, who weren't that good 6 weeks later, but they were really on top of it, in hustling Frederick Douglass out because they didn't think a black person could come in. Right. This is moments after With Malice Toward None, with Charity for All. That marvelous exchange about the second inaugural. One of the things I ask students to do is read this address that Douglass gave in 1876 when he was dedicating the Freedmen's Monument on Capitol Hill, the first monument that was built entirely by people of color, by their contributions. And to me, it's the most profound statement about both biography and America, because it's a moral meditation. Doris quoted from it a moment ago about Douglass says, imagine saying this to someone whose statue you are unveiling.
And you're black.
And you're black, born into enslavement, to a man who, let's not deify Lincoln beyond measure. He was slow to get to the Emancipation Proclamation. He was too slow for many. He was far too fast for many others. That's America right there. And he says, Abraham Lincoln was preeminently the white man's president.
Right.
We were only by adoption his stepchildren. But we knew that our fate in this man and this moment met. And because Lincoln got one big thing right, after however temporizing, however delayed, Douglass, as a student of human nature, a student of morality, understood that that is redemption on this side of paradise. The capacity to do the one hard thing, even if you miss everything else. This is a political version of the parable of the prodigal son, right? We just want you back at the end, and then we'll
at least you got the one important thing right.
Well, it's like sometimes somebody, not long ago, I was in conversation and someone said, Churchill didn't get much right except Hitler. Well, yeah.
Yeah. One big thing.
Besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
But don't you think, John, the important thing is that it's a different role you're playing when you're the outsider, as Douglass is, as part of a movement, and you're a politician with a responsibility to keep the country together. And that's what Douglass understood. I mean, that's why, even though he starts that way, he was preeminently a white man's president, he ends by saying, but he understands that he was where he was. And the two of them together, that's how change happens, when the agitator, his words are met and his actions are met by the person in power who has the capacity to do something about it. That's why that partnership is so extraordinary.
Well, there wasn't that also.
Douglass was able to bear witness, and Lincoln was able to activate it.
Do you think that was true for Johnson and Martin Luther King?
I absolutely do think so.
I think that was the same
very
combination.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
That Martin Luther King, in fact, when he makes the famous speech, the voting rights speech, he's bringing that whole civil rights movement and the people who had the courage to die for that movement, to be injured in that movement, to the highest councils of power in a joint session of Congress. They both needed one another.
And Johnson finally listened.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Can I say something about it? We have the world's leading expert on this here. Not you, Ari. I know that's hard to believe. But with Doris, one of the most important things about that moment in March of 1965, and Doris's beloved late husband wrote words of American scripture in those weeks. One of the things that I've always been fascinated by, and Doris, I'm not sure we've ever actually discussed this, is in the kind of march of time in our memory, we go from March 7th, Bloody Sunday, at Selma, John Lewis and Amelia Boykin are on the ground, tear gas. And then we go to President Johnson delivering the speech that Dick Goodwin wrote. But that was 8 days later, right?
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The next day. In those 8 days, Lyndon Johnson, and again, Doris fact-checked me on this, exerted control over the entire situation. He brings George Wallace up. he looms over him in what I think is one of the greatest stories in the history of the American presidency, where he says, well, you tell it, Doris, quickly.
I mean, first of all, he seats George Wallace, who is much shorter than he is. He seats him in a rocking chair, and he seats him on a low couch where he's going to sink down.
Yeah.
And Johnson's in a rocking chair, looming, just as John said, over him. And he says to him, "Now, George, how do you want to be remembered when you die? Do you want to be remembered as George Wallace he hated, or do you want to be remembered as George Wallace he built?" And then he just gets up and leaves. And Wallace says later, "Oh my God, if I'd stayed there any longer, I would have come out for civil rights." But what had to be dealt with in that first week was something even more important, which is that the movement was arguing for Johnson, send troops down to protect the marchers. And Johnson was afraid if he did that, it would look like Reconstruction all over again. Once they saw these big black boots coming, they wouldn't come into any kind of agreement with it. So he was waiting until he gets Wallace in there for that meeting, and he gets Wallace to agree that he can't pay for the troops. So he asks them to send the troops down, which made all the difference in the world. And then he's ready to do the joint session of Congress speech.
Check me on this. My memory is that he also wanted Dr. King and Andy Young to obey the court orders.
Right.
That they wanted Frank Johnson was the federal judge.
He was great.
What President Johnson was trying to do was make sure the movement was following the letter of the law, because they were marching from Selma to Montgomery with public roads. He wanted to make sure that was totally litigated, so that it was airtight, right? No, you couldn't. The white folks couldn't say, "Oh, they're breaking the law." He wanted everything under control. And so I just think it's a vital lesson in how you deal with both the perils and the possibilities of politics. The other thing about Douglass, which I think is very important to us as we speak, is in his first great speech, which was what to the slave is the 4th of July.
4th of July, right?
He has a line that it actually gave me the title for my Lincoln book. He wrote, "I, for one, do not despair of the Republic. The fiat of the Almighty, let there be light, has not yet spent its force." Imagine what it took for a man born into enslavement in 1852 to say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I just think, to me, this is
where did he get his education?
It is what he was.
That's crazy how instinctual plus knowledgeable plus his foresight.
It's one of the great stories. Our friend David Blight wrote a marvelous book about him. It's just you can't learn too much about him because he represents both the best and the worst of what the country is and can be. Franklin, I'm with you. To me, he so as a hapless Christian, which is kind of redundant, I've always appreciated his view of religious liberty in particular. He is asked at the end of his life by a correspondent, writes, "Dr. Franklin, what do you think about the divinity of Jesus?" And he writes back, "As to the divinity of Jesus of Nazareth, is a question I have not given much study or dogmatized upon, but I believe that his system of morals as he left them to us to be the best the world has ever seen, though when it comes to his exact divinity, I soon expect to discover the answer with less."
With less what?
I hope it works.
Great. See, he'd be fun to be married to. I told you.
Less what? Excuse me, John. I didn't hear that. With less what?
Trouble.
Oh.
So he was just going to ask him when he got there. Stanton, absolutely. I commend. She gave a marvelous speech, prescient. It could have been delivered in the 1960s, called "The Solitude of Self," and it's about a woman's soul not being somehow different from a man's soul. And it's a deeply philosophical document.
So she was the first, I don't know much about her. She was the first head of the women's movement in America, from your guys' perspective.
Well, there's a group. There's Elizabeth Cady Stanton. There's Lucretia Mott, who doesn't get.
Are they all at the same time?
Yeah.
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony. And I will put in a plug, if I may, for the state of Tennessee, which
yes, I know what you mean. Go ahead.
Gave so the 19th Amendment needs to be ratified. We needed one more state. Tennessee, it falls to Tennessee because we actually had some provision where we could have an emergency session. They were one vote short, and a very conservative guy from East Tennessee, from McMinn County, gets a letter from his mother.
Good old mom.
Really?
Saying, I'm sure you'll do the right thing. So he goes in, ratifies the 19th Amendment.
And that puts it over the top.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let's get into a fight, Ma.
Okay.
So my fourth, Paine is great, all for him. But I think my argument would be we should broaden if we're going to invent this monument, we should broaden the aperture. So I'm going to say one because Ari got mad at me last time for suggesting two.
I can't pick my fourth.
Ari, by the way, John, Ari has since started naming 15 people on every episode.
Okay. All right,
you ruined him.
You ruined me.
So I have two choices. One is Walt Whitman, to letters. Goes to Doris's point about words, but a poet, someone who was in wartime Washington, gave us a literary tradition that I think was very much in keeping. In some ways, it was a poetic version of what Paine was writing about the individual soul. So Whitman's as Doris knows, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Trollope and Dickens, but I don't think Cooper or Melville, I don't think they quite represent the country as much as Whitman does. Mm-hmm. And here's the most random one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
A free copy of Team of Rivals to whoever can tell me who here knows who Jonathan Letterman was.
I wish so badly I did.
I'll be keeping my copy of Team of Rivals.
Do you know who it is? Doris, do you know who it is?
I don't know who it is even.
Wow.
He is the father of battlefield medicine. He developed the ambulance corps in the Civil War and was basically pioneered the concept of emergency medicine.
Did he deal with washing and cleaning as opposed to dirty hands or no?
That's later.
That's later, right?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I wanted it to be the penicillin guy, but he falls
later. Yeah, he falls later. He was on my list too.
So I think that, one of the things we do, and Doris and I have had dark nights of the soul about this together, is we do elevate commanders in chief. And I think there's not enough attention paid to the people who have done the fighting, who are those who've
been in the trenches,
sharp end of the spear. And so I wanted to get both science, medicine, and something for the common soldier who's done so much, whose names we may not know.
So out of those, who are you picking the fourth?
I'm going with my man Letterman.
Wow.
Yeah,
over Whitman.
Over Whitman.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
That's interesting.
John. I think that's.
It's not going to make the list, John, but don't worry about it.
Well, look, the last time we did this, and we were on Morning Joe, you and Scarborough got in a fight.
Yes, that's true. Well,
you tried to anchor the damn thing. So.
All right, Ben.
Okay, Ben Franklin.
Let's hear you.
Ben Franklin, also for obvious reasons, one of which we all know but has not been mentioned yet, which literally beyond his writings and his inventions and his fight for the pursuit of religious freedom and human freedom later in his life, he also saved our country. He went to France. Yeah. He got them to join us. We were going to lose the war. And he
negotiated that deal.
He negotiated that deal after 50 years of already being the greatest American. And we wouldn't be here.
I agree. That's on my list.
Ben Franklin, obviously. Harriet Tubman for me. She also born a slave, escapes, goes back, saves, I think personally on her own through the Underground Railroad, like 75 individual people. Then is the first woman to lead an armed raid into the South to save another couple hundred slaves. She then is fighting for women's rights with Susan B. Anthony, and suffrage becomes part of her, later life goals and pursuits. And I think that both in the actions and in the kind of philosophy is the American ideal, and it is a hard fight for the right person, no person left behind perspective that I think is undeniable. Thomas Edison, I think not only did he create...
I thought, for the ruling from the bench.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
All right. And I thought he was a little late.
No,
Thomas Edison was a 19th century man.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he's
in the late 19th century.
I think he may beat out John Letterman, John.
Well, 1847 to 1931.
Yeah, that's...
Well, that's
1847.
why I couldn't have Eleanor in there. She was born and she didn't die till later.
You guys do that. You fancy LA guys change the rules around whenever you
we
want.
make the rules as we go.
Yes. The race stops where we say. Edison, for obvious reasons, I mean, he not only invention-wise, like DC power, I mean, you could make a Tesla argument about AC, but DC power, he creates the phonograph, he creates the video camera.
No, he was one of the great inventors.
He powers Lower Manhattan. He just essentially... The telephone. I mean, it's and beyond that, he sets up the first real lab. Like Menlo Park was the first iteration of a modern laboratory institution where there's a ton of technologists or inventors who are producing ideas at a massive clip. Something like, in this time of Menlo Labs, there was like 2 major inventions a year for, I think, over a decade. So
we're sitting in Hollywood. Didn't he invent film?
Isn't this an amazing story, which I'm not sure how true this is, but that he created and patented the video camera. I think there's over 1,000 Edison patents, and I think also he was the gnarliest, worst guy ever. But he had about over 1,000 patents, one of which was the video camera. Nobody can make movies without licensing for excruciating cost his patent. So all of these guys moved to California to avoid the Edison reach, and that's how Hollywood starts.
Yeah. He was incredible.
Which is incredible.
But he did leak into, he died in 1930 something.
Well, I'm celebrating his 19th century work. And he also, the Edison Company was the foundation of General Electric.
Yes.
So, another institution that has defined this
Ronald
country.
Reagan. I knew we'd get back to him.
Your fourth.
And my fourth is, and this is my wild one, is Mark Twain. And I think that...
Not on my list.
I think that flawed in all his words, the Walt Whitman conversation I was thinking about a lot too, but I think so much of Americans' identity is what Twain told us we were. And I think that
one of the great writers.
One of the great writers, one of the great American writers.
Yeah.
And
that's good. That's good.
And
that's really good.
I think it's important that we, he didn't invent in the same way. He didn't fight for freedom in the same way, but this is the Rushmore of the greatest Americans, and I think we know who we are. Our self-awareness is a lot due to Mark Twain.
And the hair and the stone would be good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Mark Twain, you said you had a...
I told you I had a wild card.
That was a very good one.
Okay, Ari, your turn.
Okay. So...
This is great.
I have Benjamin Franklin. I have Frederick Douglass, for all the reasons. I have Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for an immigrant from the Caribbean, orphaned, young, who rose through town, served, George Washington during the Revolutionary War, co-authored the Federalist Papers.
Created modern banking.
Yeah, Treasury Secretary. Kind of incredible. So, I mean, I think...
He got shot in Jersey.
What does that have to do with the tea in China? What is that?
I'm the Jefferson guy.
Okay, Frederick Douglass I have. So now I have
He's a Jefferson guy. This is unbelievable.
I had Edison on mine,
but I did have a asterisk because he did die in 31. But as Ben said, his inventions, like he was one of the greatest, he was probably the greatest inventor of all time for decades and decades and decades and decades. Then I have, going to what you said, John, Ellis S., I'm going to mispronounce the name, Chesebrough, I think is Chesbrough.
Chesbrough.
Yeah.
Chesbrough.
He was the first civil engineer in Chicago from 1850 to 1860. He tackled the cholera epidemic. He kind of created what we now have so that
Public
we're
health.
all healthy. The sewage system
Wow.
raised the city. He did all of that, because I was thinking about polio. I was thinking about penicillin. Like, I don't know. I thought he was.
That's a good one.
And then the
that's a
last.
How much of that is Chicago for you?
No. I remember. I remember reading about him and was like, wow, that's an amazing human
huge.
being that he figured that out. He raised the city by like 5 feet, created the sewer system. People were dying left and right. The other person I had, and I don't know if you guys had, and I'm going to pick one, is John Marshall,
Yeah.
our longest serving
that's a good
Supreme,
one. Yeah.
Marbury versus Madison in 1803. He through him, it was the third branch of government, which is, as we're sitting here today, so important.
Yep.
And he was an amazing man.
That's our next episode, is Greatest Justices.
And he was, I don't know if he was the greatest, I don't know if he was, but he was important because setting up the third branch of government. So,
one thing about him too is he's probably better seen, I would argue, as one of the most brilliant politicians in American history.
really?
Because so much of, he was Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And so much of, and we're living through this now, so much of the court's legitimacy, is about our attitude toward it, as opposed to its capacity to sanction, right? And one of the things
Say that
he did-
again?
Our
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, our
rule of law
thought process
depends
of it.
on our deciding to follow it, and it's what Montesquieu called the spirit of the laws. Marshall understood the spirit of the laws. And if you really dive into his career, you find he would pick a fight, but he would pick the right fight at the right time. He never forced anybody's hand. He had a terrific, it was very Lincoln-esque in that. He had a terrific sense of timing.
I
And
thought
that
it was
helps
just
bring
like,
support.
if we're really talking about that shaped us,
Yeah.
setting up that third branch of government.
Yeah, I thought about him too. Yeah, that's a good
it's
one.
like, if we didn't have it, oh my God, right?
So you have Chesebrough, you have Marshall. Is you going to do another one too?
I'm going to do Marshall.
Marshall.
It was Ulysses S. Grant.
He's the president. You can't
He's
do
the
that.
president.
Yeah. So,
So what do we
Okay.
do now? What do we do?
So
we
now-
know we have Benjamin Franklin. We know we have
Fred
Douglass. Those two are,
Okay.
Right.
Okay, now we fight.
now we fight.
I
mean-
mean, we have two
We
Stantons.
need one of you guys to vote for Stanton.
Yeah, we got two Stantons on here, and then otherwise there's
yeah.
no.
I didn't know that much about Stanton.
Me neither.
That was really
That's why
impressive.
we're here, Ari.
Yeah,
What do you-
I appreciate it. I don't have to pay for your class.
Yeah.
No, and we forget, we've somehow made it seem like the suffrage movement was easy. It wasn't at all. I mean, even when they came out with that Declaration of Sentiments, the editorials against this is ludicrous. Why should women have the right to vote? They don't know enough. Their hoop skirts will get caught in the voting booth. What are the lords going to do if they have to wash dishes? And, they were really afraid.
No, I'm actually,
women
I love
changing
that.
their
I didn't
status.
even think about it. I love it. I love that choice. I'm going with you, John.
I would strongly argue for.
All right, we're putting Stanton. We're putting a tentative Stanton on as number 3 right now.
I think, though, yes, Doris, we're talking about words. Between Hamilton and Marshall, These are people that shaped what we now, what we're living through right now. And for me, in a weird way, Marshall is more important because without the third branch, I mean, I don't know if this idea or this dream survives.
So here's my argument for either Twain or one of the non-political ones. One could argue that because of Franklin, you have covered our public sector. You've covered the Constitution. You've covered politics. It was Franklin who actually delivered the last speech at the convention saying it's not perfect, but I think I see a rising sun and not a setting sun. And I think I would argue that if you're going to hypothetically do this, representing more spheres of life is a virtue.
I agree.
with you. I'll be willing to give up Tom Paine in the interests of either literature, Whitman and Twain, or the scientific Edison or Alice.
You know what's funny? None of us have mentioned. I think if you were to ask somebody to define like a major tenet of America, it would be economic superiority. And none of us mentioned Rockefeller, none of us mentioned Vanderbilt, none of us mentioned Carnegie, like any of the people that built the infrastructure of this country financially just got ignored, which is funny.
I mean, interesting. I mean, that's what I'm writing about right now. And Mark Twain gave the phrase, it's sort of, I'm writing about the Gilded Age, and Teddy Roosevelt's dealing with the captains of industry. So right now I'm deep.
Peter Thiel would have loved to have grown up when there was monopolies because he believes in monopolies. Yeah.
Also, I mean, Rockefeller is such an interesting example. Obviously, we haven't mentioned him. He can't make the list, but not only did he create Standard Oil, but he was the forcing function to antitrust. So we live in this post Rockefeller world both ways. Right. But anyway, we didn't put him in, so we can't include him now. I think that we have to have a
scientist.
We got to have a scientist on here. That's my only argument against
cholera. He stopped cholera, my guy.
I'm voting for John. No, I'm just joking. I'm not voting for John Letterman.
What you're being very hostile today.
How about?
But you wouldn't be, because Edison rolls into 1931. Died.
I just if there was a 19 involved, I just backed off. But I think Edison's right. I think that's right.
Most of his stuff. I mean, he's electricity, not electricity. I mean, the X-ray rather. I'm getting mixing up my Benjamin Franklin with him. But when you think about what it mattered with the light bulb, with X-ray machines that he developed. I mean, at the turn of the 20th century, when those lights went on in places, it was an extraordinary thing. Yeah, it was a sense of wonder that people.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And the incandescent light bulb was 19th century, right? That was late. Yeah. That was like 1890s.
Yeah,
I think Edison got to make the list.
You're working right on the gray area here.
It's very much so.
I mean, don't you think, John?
If he hadn't been so hostile about John Letterman, by the way, if you're shot in a war, we're leaving you. No ambulance for you.
Okay, I put Letterman back on. No, I'm just joking. I think
no, but we have three. We just have to pick the fourth now, right?
So
I would vote for Edison. I think that's right.
I think I would too. I was thinking of doing him. So it's an inelegant
I
way
had him on my list, but then I was with John. He went into he died in 1931. So I'm okay with that choice.
You're okay with it. Had we said, maybe I missed that they had to die before 1900s?
We didn't say that, but that was the implied assumption.
I'm a little slower than the rest of the group. I'm sorry.
All right.
You don't like my Marshall idea, huh?
I do. I think you cover it with Franklin.
And you said, we've got those public people at the beginning. We've got Franklin there. So I think the idea of having some other field recognized is a very good one.
But we still have, though, potentially three public figures or figures that represent like the public discourse, and we have no literature. We have Stanton, Douglass, and Franklin that
they all wrote incredible literature.
Franklin and Douglass. No. Douglass wrote like 6 memoirs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you just want Twain so bad.
No, or I think Walt Whitman's maybe even a better answer than Twain. I just think that is part of.
See, Johnny's really giving you a lot of props there.
And I'm coming back. I'm trying to work my way back in.
I like that.
Are you guys okay with read the 4?
Benjamin Franklin, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Frederick Douglass, and Thomas Edison.
I think that's a great list.
I like that.
All right.
Can we? Why don't we sell like coffee mugs of Twain in the shop?
Yeah, almost. They could say, I was almost there. Something like that.
Asterisk.
This is a great list. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
As always, it's like going to graduate classes. So thank you. I appreciate it.
This was really fun. It was really
Thank you
fun.
very much. We'll
Wait,
go
what-
back on Morning Joe, and I won't act like I run the show.
That made my month.
Okay, good.